Welcome back, everybody, to Life in Louisville. I'm Katie, your local friendly real estate agent here in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm trying to provide all the information you need to know about living in my great city. Today, I'm going to be telling you the cons of living in Louisville, Kentucky. So let's jump right in. The first con is our public transportation system. If you're going to live in Louisville, you're probably going to end up needing a car. While we do have several walkable neighborhoods that are close to the city, for the most part, Louisville's not a city that you can rely on walking to get around the city. You're going to need to go further distances than probably what your legs will carry you. You also need to keep in mind that our transportation costs are about 3% higher than the average transportation cost. It's more expensive to own a vehicle in Louisville. You're going to have more costs associated with maintenance, with purchasing the vehicle. We all know as of June 2022, the gas prices are just crazy across the entire country. Here in Louisville, they're at $4.99 a gallon, which is higher than even a lot of other states that I've recently traveled to. So it is expensive to own a vehicle here in Louisville, although you probably have to do that because there's not very many walkable areas. Now we do have public transportation. Okay, we have Uber, Lyft, taxi services, but those would be really expensive to rely on as your ongoing mode of transportation. We do have TARC, which is our public bus system. Now, the good thing about TARC is it's very affordable, but TARC also has a lot of negative things associated with it as well. The bus routes have not been updated in many years, so a lot of the new places and industry where people work are not included on those bus routes. The bus routes have downtown pretty well covered, but if you need to get anywhere in the outskirts of the city, it's going to be very difficult for you to rely on the bus system to get there. A lot of times you'll get to your bus stop and then you might have several other miles to walk before you'd be able to get to the destination that you're trying to go. Another thing about TARC is it is not very reliable as far as its schedule. So the buses might arrive 10 minutes early or 10 minutes late. You're never really sure what kind of schedule the bus is operating on, so it's hard to keep a tight schedule and to get to your destination on time. So because of the cost of transportation and because it's difficult to not rely on public transportation here, that's why transportation is one of our cons of living in Louisville. Our next con is that we do not have a pro football or basketball team. Now, some people might not care about this, but my kids always tell me I have to make sure people know that we do not have these things because this is one of their major cons of living in this city and even in this state. They really want to rally behind a pro sports team, but they're just not able to do it because we don't have that. Now, we have lots of great college sports. We also have a minor league baseball team as well as our club professional soccer team, which is Lou City. So you definitely can get behind those sports teams, but if you're looking for pro football or basketball, you're not going to find it here. The next con is our public school system. Now, Louisville is different in its public education than a lot of other cities. We have one county-wide school system for the entire city, Jefferson County Public Schools. We have over 101,000 students in about 150 schools. So this is a very large public school system. A lot of other mid-major cities are divided more by suburbs and they have suburban school districts, but that's just not how it is here in Louisville. Back before the pandemic, when they looked at all the standardized test scores, 70% of Kentucky's lowest performing schools were within Jefferson County Public Schools. I will say the public education system is a con, but I do want to let you know there are some really great schools within our school district. It's just a little tricky to navigate. Both of my kids are elementary school students at a great public magnet that you can attend. So you just have to know how to navigate it. If you're moving here and you have more questions about the public school system, I'm happy to talk with you. There's lots of ways that you can work around the public school system, so I would encourage you to reach out. Kentucky as a state is ranked 32nd out of 50 states. For public education, they look at standardized test scores, enrollment rates, and graduation rates when they're considering these rankings, but we fall right at number 32. Because the public school system is so tricky to navigate and a lot of people are concerned about the quality of educations, a lot of families end up turning to the private school system. Now, I will say we have a lot of options for private schools here in Louisville. The challenge is they can be very costly. So if you're looking to go to a private Catholic high school, the tuition is probably going to start at about $15,000 per year. So that is definitely a con. It is difficult to afford the private schools here for sure. So when you're thinking about education in Louisville, that can be a con because you're either going to have to navigate the large and confusing public school system, or you're going to have to shell out some big bucks for your kids to be able to go to private school. The next con is the weather. The summers can be very hot and humid. Our averages are in the 80s, but because of the humidity, it makes it feel a lot hotter. And actually this week when I'm filming this video, we have a heat advisory in effect for the entire week. It's going to be over 101 degrees, so it's very hot and sticky and balmy out there this week. Another con of the weather is our rainfall. Our average annual rainfall is about 46 inches per year, although a couple of years ago we broke that record. We had 68 inches of rain. We tend to have a lot of flash flooding here in Louisville because we have these heavy downpours and streets will get closed down. If you own a house in Louisville, you're probably going to want to get your basement waterproofed because we have a lot of basement flooding issues with some of our older homes in Louisville. That rain can be really tricky. It's just our levee system is old, it's outdated, and so the way that the city is structured and laid out just makes it prone to a lot of flash flooding. Additionally, we have higher than average tornado incidents here in the city. You can expect to see tornadoes coming through during the spring and summer, sometimes even into the fall. We have quite a few tornadoes. It's not going to be an everyday occurrence, but we're going to have a couple of tornadoes and a couple of storms that are pretty severe every single year. The next thing about the weather that's the con is the snowfall. Now, we don't get a ton of snow every year, but when we do get a pretty heavy snowfall, pretty much the entire city shuts down. The road crews are not really prepared for this snowfall because we don't have it so much. It's just maybe once or twice a year. Pretty much the whole city has to shut down, and that's because drivers are just not used to driving in the snow, and then it seems like school always seems to be canceled and a lot of workplaces will shut down because of the snow. The next con is the higher than average crime rate. Last year, the Pegasus Institute did a study where they were tracking homicide rates in major cities across America, and for a good part of 2021, Louisville homicide rate was actually higher than Philadelphia, Chicago, and Atlanta. Those are some of our most dangerous cities, and so that's really saying something to say that our homicide rate was higher than those other cities. Now, when we measure crime, we look at an index where they make a ranking from 1 to 100, 1 being very low crime, 100 being very high crime. Louisville's violent crime was at 46.2. The national average is only 22.7. Louisville's property crime was ranked at 87.2, whereas the U.S. national average is 35.4. So you can see for both property crime and violent crime, we're well above the national average. And while that might be scary for some of you, I do want to encourage you, there's plenty of great places to live in the city that are docile and don't have a lot of violent crime. It's just you have to navigate where those places are. The last con is Kentucky has a flat income tax rate of 5%. Now, depending on your income level, this might be a pro or a con, but for the most part, we see it as a con. It's not adjusted for your income, it's just a flat 5%. Now, keep in mind, this is different than your federal income tax level, which is based on your income and is set by the federal government. That is different than our state tax level, which our state income tax is just straight at 5%. So I hope you've enjoyed this video about the cons of living in Louisville, Kentucky. If you need more information about living in Louisville, or if you want to know some of the pros, be sure to check out my video, The Pros and Cons of Living in Louisville. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, and also never hesitate to reach out. I would love to talk to you about my city. If you're considering relocating here, I'd be happy to help with that as well. Thanks so much.